What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Exposure, another edition, exposure.locals.com, with good friend and gubernatorial candidate, but more importantly, right now, representative of the 59th District of Wisconsin, Representative Timothy Ramthun. How are you, brother?
Doing well. Could be
Yeah.
better, but it could be worse. So,
Let's just get into the meat of this. All right. I just saw breaking news of you outside the room in which Robin Voss had agreed to meet this day at 10 a.m., March 16th, with your constitutional lawyers that you brought in for the resolution that you had to decertify on AJR 120. And you have been, from what I hear, kicked out of that meeting.
yes, I went to observe. I wanted to watch the body language. I wanted to watch the evidence they were going to present today to the speaker who has been reluctant to know the truth the whole time. And I was at the far end of the table. He was at one end, I was at the other. And he said something like, Tim, this isn't your meeting. You need to leave.
He said that to you directly.
Yet directly. And then Jefferson Davis said, because he was on the organizing side for the people, said, no, wait a second. He's the representative of the 59th, and it's his resolution, and it's a state resolution discussion, something to that effect. And the speaker responded back, no, he's running for governor too, and I don't want this to be a campaign event, which is crap because it has nothing to do with anything but AJR 120. And finally, we have an opportunity to have a discussion with people who are naysayers in the obvious of the right to ask the question to decertify and reclaim our 10 electors in Wisconsin, and also justified by the constitutional elements that are supported by constitutional attorneys and constitutional experts. This is a hearing type event I've wanted for 17 months now. And frankly, when we presented the case with the 72 slides that came from my office, that was out there basically in November already, and we formalized the presentation again in January. They've had it for months. This legislative act was given a number, AJR 120. It was put into the Rules Committee, and all the majority leader, Jim Steineke, needed to do was have a hearing like they're kind of happening today, only maybe an informational hearing, so it's public invited, but public can't speak. Just invited speakers can speak. That's all I would have asked for. And you drill down into the justification of the point with debate and argument and evidence, and then the room gets to a consensus where they say, yes, you can, or no, you can't. That's all I've ever wanted. And they're having it today in some regard, not to the degree I was hoping for, but it's substantial enough. But to not be there to witness the residual effect to my legislation and to my act on behalf of the state of Wisconsin and our country is a bit disturbing. However, the Lord does work in mysterious ways. And after I was removed from the building, or I exited, I wanted to at first debate it. And then I thought, well, the needs of the many, outweigh the needs of my situation. And I'm not going to cause a problem where he would just get up and leave. Well, fine. If Ramthun's not leaving, then I'm leaving. I didn't want that to happen. And I would be willing to bet he would have done that, because that's what desperate people do when they get cornered. They do crazy stuff, right? So I decided to sacrifice myself and leave for the good of the many. So they're having a really good hearing. I know I'll get all the information. It'll be almost as good as being there. But I'm in my office for a few minutes, Marcus, and there's cameras all over. They got the whole hallway.
But that hearing's happening as we're talking right now.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
On your resolution.
Yep. And there's cameras in the hallway from all over, local media, national media. I think Fox News is here. We got some Fox 6 out of Milwaukee is here. So it's going to get some traction on the media today. So I went back out by him, and I got in front of all these cameras, and I said, how do you guys feel about not being in that room? Freedom of the press, open, honest, transparent government. How do you feel about being out here? And then he started asking me some questions about the resolution. And one guy says to me, he goes, one of the media guys in the back says, so what kind of evidence do you have that allows you to suggest to reclaim our 10 electors? And I go, did you look at the 72 slide report on my site? Did you look at Justice Gableman's 138 page report? And he goes, well, yeah. And I said, well, then why are you asking me that question? Your answer is in that data. So either you're not being truthful to me, or you just didn't read it. And that's how I spun that answer. I said, all of you, and I looked at the cameras like I'm talking to the media and the people watching, and I said, all of you need to look at the 72 slide report on my page, rep.ramthun@legis.wisconsin.gov, and or Michael Gableman's report, and you'll get the same conclusion that I have, which is we have a right to reclaim. So I put it back on him. It was a pretty good move. Everybody around me was videotaping it, so there'll be some recap of that expression to the media. But it is what it is, Marcus. I'm not in the room, but I'll get enough debrief. I'll be part of the press conference. And
yeah, but Tim, I know you well enough to know that you're taking the slings and arrows for the people, and you're trying to do it with humility. But this is an egregious act, like you said in your answer. Your first 2 minutes you gave. This is your resolution.
Yep.
This is your constitutional lawyers that are in that room that he has agreed via a radio interview, asked by a public member of the Wisconsin citizenry, to say, will you be able to meet with people of the constitutional nature that Tim Ramthun has brought forth to listen to potential decertification arguments?
So the underlining theme behind this act of desperation by the origin of obstruction, who is Robin Voss,
cheers to that,
is it might make me look good. See, now I'm a gubernatorial candidate. I'm not his establishment pick. There's another individual who's been running for governor for 4 years now, who is his establishment pick. And I've been running for governor for 4 weeks. We're doing really, really well in this state. And my goodness, how terrible it would be for me to be in that room and be part of that success story that finally proves to this guy that he's been wrong the whole time. Actually, I think he knows he's wrong. He just doesn't want to admit it because there's too much at stake, too much for him to lose, right? Yeah. And too much maybe perhaps for me to gain. And heaven forbid, I would look good in the eyes of the public for having done the right thing for the last 17 plus months of my life. That's another reason why I'm not in the room today, because it would be a win for me. And he can't have that because his establishment pick is the one he wants to see get credit.
Yeah, but Tim, this has to be more than optics, because there is no cameras allowed in there. There are no press allowed, no public allowed in this room. So yeah, the optics of him kicking you out, it feels a lot like the moment in which he kicked Tristan off your staff. It feels like more of a power move than it does an optical move, because what benefit would he have to gain optically if there's no public there to see what he just did? And it took citizens, grassroots people, to out this information, and then you going in front of a camera to talk about why it happened.
I couldn't disagree with you at all on that. That's probably a lot to do with it as well. I asked the organizers on the people side, specifically a gentleman by the name of Jefferson Davis. I was led to understand that the Speaker's office had asked for names of those attending. And I assumed it was everybody attending, from constitutional attorneys, Jefferson Davis, myself, et cetera, right? When I re-asked the question yesterday, just to make sure, because I had an intuitive feeling that something wasn't quite right, the answer was, well, no, they just wanted the names of the constitutional attorneys. So then I knew that, well, the Speaker knows only that then. He doesn't know who else is coming. So when he saw me today, he took advantage of that and wanted to make a power move to try to, I don't know, set the tone in the room like I'm in charge and this is my meeting and I'm going to kick this guy out. And here's your standard bearer and he's your flag bearer and we're kicking him out. So
here, I mean, he's doing this as he's said to you that you're doing this as a campaign for governor, yet you've introduced the resolution as the representative of the 59th for the people of your district. These people's voices are now not being heard by the representative that they elected to be in that room, yep, that they elected to bring forth the resolution in the first place.
And there's no other representatives in the room, no other legislators except for the Speaker. So everything that comes out of the room from a legislative perspective will be slanted to be what he wants it to be. and it probably won't be truth. That's why I went back and talked to the cameras and the media people. I wanted to ask them how they felt about not being included in the room. And one of them said, "Do you think we should be here?" I said, "Absolutely.
Absolutely.
This is a public event and freedom of the press, and you should be in there." And
So who is in the room right now with him, talking with him, if there's no other legislators?
I saw a Legislative Reference Bureau member. I saw a Legislative Council member. I saw the Speaker. I saw Jefferson Davis, and then several constitutional attorneys, pretty much all who are part of my 72-slide report, as well as Justice Gableman's report. John Eastman is in there. He's a phenomenal individual, very astute. There were a couple of individuals on a video screen. I didn't get their names. I wasn't really sure how the mechanics of that were set up and who they were, but they were, I'm sure, data experts that were going to show convincingly that fraud occurred and that we had a stolen election. So I was told before the meeting and while I was leaving out, this is going to be great. It's going to get good. So hang on and all that kind of stuff. So I'm confident that the right people are in the room for the execution of the information. I should be there though as well because it's my resolution and I'm the representative. But the Speaker wants to control the narrative.
Yeah.
He wants to be a bully. He wants to flex his muscle. And I desperately wanted to challenge him right then and there, right in front of all the cameras. But I felt concerned that the ramification might result in cancellation of the meeting, and that would have been on me.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know what? I'm going to take a step back and let it happen, and let the media soak this up. This is an injustice today, again, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
This is another one of the examples of obstruction that I've had to endure for 17 months while I've been trying to do the right thing of, by, and for the people.
And this has shades, Tim, of getting language on to Senate Bill 946 of early Monday voting, in which he had that early caucus meeting between the breaks of the last day of session. This has backroom deal written all over it. And then he comes out into the media, sprays a different story. Spreitzer calls him out on the floor for not working with Democrats, even though he said he would. They take the language, they explain it through Peterson, Representative Peterson, omit the early Monday language when talking about the whistleblower bill that was passed with the amendment that was added, and then try to get it passed into a committee when it goes back to the Senate before. This is the closed door, backdoor deals that this is what Voss's MO is. How can people stand for this? How can people continue to allow this to happen?
I have done more than once actions and or words that told him to go pound sand. And I wanted desperately to do that today when I was basically told to my face, you need to leave. I wanted him to go pound sand. And I was right there. And I the problem with this guy is he's been allowed to get away with too much for too long, almost to the point now where maybe some of what he does is learned behavior. And it's become acceptable because it's the same person doing it. So people kind of think, oh, it must be all right because he's doing it and he's done it before. Doesn't make it right.
Right.
So in the case of today, though, however, I couldn't take the chance to risk canceling the meeting because I was going to go toe to toe with him. I wanted to really bad. It was a perfect opportunity to punch him right in the nose and say, go pound sand. But I was concerned about the collateral damage. And I just had to, the discernment element kicked in, and I just could not risk what was created and have it be destroyed today, because then it may have never happened again. So I had to sacrifice myself and step out for the good of the bigger picture, the good of the many. So it'll trouble me for a while. It'll bother me for a while because there's only one way to treat a bully, and that's to punch him right back in the nose. But in this case, I couldn't take the chance, because he could have just ended it and said, fine, I'm out of here, and left. Yeah. And then we would have been screwed, and then it would have been on me. And that would have been unfair, by the way, because I would not have caused it. He would have been the one to abandon. I mean, I'm hypothetical here, but I could just see him having a little temper tantrum and saying, fine, I'm out of here, and then leave. Too late now. I'm out of here and go. And then I'm stuck, explaining that. So I wasn't.
Well, it sounds like, I mean, the only reason this is happening anyway is because of the work of your office and what you've done to expose all the information that has been presented and coagulated into a resolution that says we don't need all the fraud, we need some of it, and we've got a ton of it on broken election laws and broken laws by the Wisconsin Election Commission, drop boxes added to the state. Even an early certified election, a complaint from Dean Knutson, the Wisconsin Election Commissioner himself, which was in breaking of statute 7.07. Early certification before the audit was done, what they want to call an audit, And so you brought all that forth and coagulated that into a resolution, which is now being heard. And it sounds like, from what you're describing, that it's basically the constitutional lawyers that say there is a mechanism and a method to decertifying constitutionally this electoral result versus what he's already put forth through legislative counsel, which they say there is no mechanism to decertify.
It's unfortunate I'm not in the room to watch the revelation when truth comes out. The media said, "What do you want out of this today, Representative Ramthun?" And I said, truth. That was my answer. What more can you ask for? I've been wanting truth the whole time. And then I launched another comment. I said, I want to eliminate conspiracy. I want to eliminate conjecture and mystery. I said, the truth will get us there. And having this type of meeting should have happened a long time ago. It should be in public. But it's not. And then I said, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist. They want to label me that because that's the name calling element. When you lose a debate, slander becomes the tool of the loser, right? So let's call Tim names for trying to do the right thing of by and for the people. It's okay. They can keep talking out of their butt. I'm focused on truth. That evidence is in the 72 slides. It's in Justice Gableman's report. There's two people now basically suggesting decertification. And there's still crickets coming from the legislative body. And the other thing I'll add is now suddenly when session is done for the year, now it's okay to have a meeting and talk about this.
Exactly.
So that's where the optics elements kick in, right? So we could still have a session, a floor session on AGR 120. It would have to be a special session. It would have to be an extraordinary session. Now, the thing that puzzles me is 2 years ago at this time, when COVID hit, the Senate was supposed to meet on March 24th to take care of all the bills that that the Assembly had addressed on February 20th or 22nd. And they were going to end the year with everything getting done, right? Well, the Senate never met because of COVID. And all the bills that we passed in the Assembly in February of 2020 died on April 1st. Because you get to a point where the session ends and then all those bills died. That leads me to one more point for anybody from the legislative body who's watching, and maybe it took some time to waste while watching Majority Leader Steineke's exit interview on Wisconsin Eye. One question I wish the reporter would have asked him is, how many bills do you have sitting in your committee right now that haven't been heard and dealt with of by and for the people? Quick glance, by the way, I counted 160. And that didn't even include the resolutions, whether they're assembly resolutions or joint resolutions from the assembly. They're stuck in the rules committee by the chairman who didn't do his job for the whole stinking session. And then yet they take time to talk about Ramthun running for governor and how, it'll probably fizzle out, right? Why don't you talk about dereliction of duty and the lack of not being the leader of a committee and the leader of a party to get the work done that the body put forth in front of you? 160 plus bills are going to die because the guy didn't do his job. And they want to talk about my campaign and a Wisconsin exit interview.
Tim,
well, crap.
Tim, that speaks to selective legislation. I mean, I'm sure 160 of those aren't the most recent 160 bills that have been put forth to that committee. So if that's the case, then they're selecting bills from previous entry into that committee that have been brought forth ahead of other bills that should be in queue before them. Am I wrong there?
Well, that point was touched on recently too, where an individual said, how many bills get to the floor that are not passed? And the answer is pretty much none. Everything is conditioned to get to the floor to pass. And whether they get signed by the governor is another story. We don't have debate on the floor. We don't have discussion. Everything's scripted and orchestrated and conditioned to be a certain way. And when you look back at the Rules Committee, which is the staging area for legislation for the state of Wisconsin, and there's 160 plus bills in there that are getting dusty and probably not going to be dealt with. We're kicking cans down the road to maybe bring them back again next session. It'd be interesting to see how many bills get regurgitated session after session after session. I don't think anybody's ever done any metrics on that, but maybe as governor, I will. I'd like to see what waste of time we got going on here, where committees are meeting, members are getting paid, people are coming in to testify. We have executive sessions, we have floor sessions. There's time and money being spent for nothing. And it's an incredibly huge inefficiency and a waste of government time and money. And then this guy's doing an exit interview talking about Ramthun for governor. It's all crap, Marcus. It's a waste of time. And this is why I'm running for governor, because in this body, you've got too many people talking about, stuff that doesn't matter. So.
Yeah, no, I know there's so many topics we could talk about, but I do want to get you out here quick. I want to ask you a few final questions. One of them being, you talked about having a special session, that this still could be brought to the floor for a discussion and potentially vote. How would somebody go about getting that special session?
Great question. Legislative leadership is required to call a special and/or extraordinary session. So both houses, Majority Leader LeMahieu and Speaker Voss, would have to agree to have an extraordinary and/or special session, or the governor could call it. And every time the governor calls an extraordinary special session, the legislative body gavels in and gavels out. So that's probably not an option there, especially for AJR 120, by the way. So it would fall on the leadership of the legislative body. So don't hold your breath.
One last thing. Now, you just spoke about LeMahieu and Voss. They're going to be at a meeting tonight for GOP county chair and vice chairman, in which Lord only knows what they have in store for that meeting. Do you think today's method of what they did to you, kicking you out of this, was pre-planned and in anticipation of what's headed into this meeting tonight?
I thought you were going to ask me if I think the methodology of this meeting was going to be the same as tonight. I think so. I think
then I'll ask you that question.
They're going to try to orchestrate and script and basically run point on what's going to be talked about, what's going to be said. I don't think they're going to allow for any sort of debate or any sort of motions by the chairs. I don't know what type of meeting this is. If it's an official RPW / GOP meeting where they can have to take minutes and call it to order and follow parliamentary procedure or not, I don't know. But if they can have everybody come together in a room and it's a formal event, it should be official. So we'll see what happens. I'll be up there. I'll be with the people. Apparently, there is going to be a gathering of individuals. They're calling it a We the People rally. By the way, Ramthun has nothing to do with it, despite the fact that the speaker has been trying to blame me for that I'm trying to divide the party and I don't want to have the meeting happen. He's wrong on both fronts. I'm not dividing anything. He is. And I want this meeting to happen between the chairs and vice chairs and the leadership, because they've demanded action from these guys for over a year now on this issue and haven't gotten it. So it's about time they get an audience with them.
Last question. Somebody who's been as close to Voss while working with him as you have been, what advice or what kind of words would you give the GOP chair and vice chair around the state that are going to show up to talk with him and LeMahieu tonight? What would you want to say to them if you could tell them anything before this meeting?
Don't pull any punches. Ask the questions. Be direct. Don't let him tell you how to think and feel. Don't let him throw poll numbers in your face when he doesn't qualify where the data comes from. Don't let him tell you that Ramthun is trying to divide the party and doesn't want to have the meeting. That's all untrue. And that's what he does to deflect. He wants to make it look like he's trying to do the right thing and throw everybody else under the bus, when in fact, he's the one who's causing the disruption and the fragmentation in our body right now, and labeling me an individual who's causing issues is unfair and untrue as well. They just need to hold him accountable for his lack of action. That's what they need to do tonight.
Well, I hope that we're going to find out what happens from this meeting. Keep us updated on what transpires between Robin Voss, Legislative Counsel, your constitutional lawyers with the discussion that they're having. The first question that should be asked when he walks out of that room, if there's any journalist out there with integrity that has a camera and a microphone ready to ask him, is what was his mode and intention in kicking you out? Because if they don't ask these questions, this is why we're having you on. Because if they're not going to ask the questions, somebody has to. And somebody has to figure out why in the world these methods are being used, these strong-arm power moves in his eyes to make you feel inferior, even though you are representing a county or in a district that your people elected you to do the job that you're doing. It reeks of establishment and power moves. And I hope there's a journalist out there that's willing to ask him those questions. I really do.
I hope so too. I would just say I did not want to risk him having a temper tantrum and a pity party and leaving. I couldn't risk that. So I stepped out to preserve the structure and the people who came from afar. I think John Eastman, constitutional attorney John Eastman, is Colorado. Airline flight, hotel room, you got time and money expenditure. I did not want to risk losing that. So it'll be okay. I don't need to be in the room to show this gentleman the truth that he's been avoiding for 17 months. Yeah. It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what he comes up with for answers, Marcus, because when you're presumed guilty by your actions and you get overwhelmed with truth that puts you in a really bad place, I'm really anxious to see what he does, because he should have taken action a long time ago if he cared about truth. He doesn't, because I think he's afraid of it. And there's reasons why you're afraid of truth when you're guilty. So that's what I think is going on here too. Just
I'm going to get you out of here. You got a lot of stuff going on. I appreciate the time that you did give us. Representative of the 59th District of Wisconsin, Timothy Ramthun, thank you so much, sir.
Have a great day. Blessed day. Bye now.